you guys? This is Rob from Guy Plays, and today on the Daily Grind, we're doing a bit of beginner's guide on Anthem's damage types, their elemental effects, as well as Javelin Combos. So, kicking things off, I do have a little bit of a disclaimer. As many of you guys know, the only thing that we've really been able to play so far is the VIP demo, as well as the public demo. So, all of my experiences and all of the information that you have here is from this time period. So, do keep that in mind. Things changes, rebalances happen, but this is all of the information that I've been able to gather to date. So, without ado, let's jump into damage types. Now, our first elemental damage type is Fire. This deals bonus damage to armor targets as well as physically shielded targets. And for those of you guys who have absolutely no clue what that means, armored targets are indicated with a yellow bar of health instead of a red one, and it kind of gives you the idea that they're a little bit tankier than most. As for physically shielded targets, that means that they're like physically carrying a shield to block your attacks. So Fire is going to deal bonus damage to them. However, to keep the universe balanced, it will deal less damage to energy shields, which is indicated by a blue bar. As for its bonus elemental effect, it will deal additional damage over time to any enemies that are inflicted with it. As for the acid damage type, this is very similar to Fire, where it is strong against armored targets and physically shielded targets, but weak towards energy shields. As for its bonus elemental effect, it's actually a defense debuff, which causes any enemies that are afflicted with it to take additional damage from you or any of your allies. Now, as for Ice, this one is actually the complete flip side of Fire and Acid, where it's strong against energy shields, but weak against armor targets and physically shielded targets. Its status effect is also a little bit different. Now, supposedly, weaker attacks will slow down enemies over time, and subsequent attacks will cause them to freeze completely. Now, I played a Ranger and I used Freeze Grenade and a Interceptor that used Cryo Grenade, and I kind of found that most of the time, as long as any energy shields were down, you could use your freezing attacks and enemies would freeze over completely in one single shot. But I did notice that the Storm sometimes had to kind of like pelt enemies with its abilities to get them to freeze over completely. So that's just personal experience. If you guys had anything different down below, go ahead and toss that in the comments. As for the electric damage type, again, this is strong against energy shields, but weak towards armor and physical shields. Now, as for its bonus elemental effect, it actually chains to additional enemies in the vicinity. So it's a great kind of like AoE tool, just in case you wanted to clear a bunch of enemies at once. So the last two damage types that I wanted to have a chat about are Impact and Explosive. Now, the devs haven't said anything about these two types to make them unique or special. They seem like baseline damage with no weakness or resistances applied towards them, and they don't have any status effects, but they can be used as detonators. The only thing that kind of like weirds me out about these ones is the fact that they are separated into their own categories. So I'm wondering if down the line we'll see something unique with them, but as it stands for now, they are basic. Alrighty, now that we're done talking about damage, we can have a quick chat about combos. Now, for those of you guys who are a little bit newer and don't quite know how this goes, it is a two-part process. First, you need to prime your target, then you need to go ahead and detonate the combo. So priming a target will usually inflict a status effect on them, whether it's Fire's Burn or Ice's Freeze. You'll actually see a little icon above the enemy's head that will let you know that they are in fact primed. After that, you follow it up with a detonation attack to go ahead and trigger the combo. Now, as you can see in the background, I've actually gone ahead and posted up an image that contains all of the current attacks that we have for each different Javelin, and it indicates whether it is a primer or a combo or absolutely nothing at all. All credit goes to Fire Dragon 04 for this graphic, and I'll actually go ahead and leave a link to the description box down below so that you guys can go ahead and check that out. Now, when it comes to triggering combos, each Javelin actually has their own different style. So let's go ahead and jump into that. So we're going to start things out with the most basic of all of the combo effects, which of course comes from the Ranger. Now, whenever the Ranger triggers a combo on an enemy, they actually go ahead and deal bonus damage to that target. Now, while it sounds really basic, I think that it's actually a great effect when it comes to taking out priority targets. If you know something is going to mess up your team and you've seen it cause problems before, go ahead and go after that enemy, whether it's you priming it or whether it's another ally priming it. As long as you get your detonations off on it, it's absolutely fantastic to kind of like chunk them down. Now, let's talk about some combos that I really liked when I played the Ranger. One of the ones that I liked was to prime with Frost Grenade and then use Seeking Missile to detonate it. So Frost Grenade basically just kind of like takes that target out of the battle and leaves them there helpless, and then you can go ahead and throw those Seeking Missiles into that enemy and just start ripping them to pieces. It's absolutely fantastic for that. The other one that I really liked was priming with Venom Darts. So as you guys know, that'll actually weaken enemy defenses, and then you can go ahead and toss a Sticky Grenade on them. It does have a little bit of a delay, but the damage is quite satisfying. And I do have to make note here, I didn't think I was going to like Sticky Grenade as much as I did, but it feels like it has a little bit of like compensation for it when it comes to targeting, because it hits the target pretty goddamn well. I was expecting to miss a whole lot. Now, one thing to note, just in case you guys did want to play around with it, is that the Ranger's melee is actually a shock baton. So that will prime enemies with electricity, just in case maybe one of your cooldowns is down and you only have your detonator up. So melee, toss a detonator on it, boom, chunks of damage. Moving along, we have the next one, and I think that everybody that played a Colossus just fell in love with their combo triggers. So whenever Colossus triggers a combo, they actually do an area of effect explosion. So it's absolutely like, it's fireworks when you get a Colossus doing what they do, because they can clear out a lot of like grunts very quickly. And the most well-known combo, and I think it's just the best, is you prime with Flamethrower. So you set everything on fire, and then you turn on your Spark Coil, and the Spark Coil will like target a close target and detonate them. So all of a sudden you just see these like explosions going off everywhere around you, and you just feel like you're bringing some war right to their enemies' faces. It's fantastic. And I do want to make note too that, you know, maybe you got your Flamethrower out, but you don't necessarily have your Spark Coil up, maybe it's down. The Colossus's melee is also a detonator as well. One thing that I do want to make note of here is that Spark Coil, while it's kind of weird because it just flips on, it goes on automatically, you can keep your shields up with it on. So what you can do is you can Flamethrower the shit out of everything. See, I'm getting so flustered because I loved it so much. Turn Spark Coil on, hide behind your shield, and if there's any enemy that you run out of juice on for Spark Coil, just melee them. Boom. Absolutely fantastic. Oh, makes me feel warm inside. Moving along to something that doesn't make me feel warm inside, which is Storm. Now, as you guys know, I'm not great at Storm, but I've definitely seen some amazing Storms in action. So their combo trigger effect is that they actually spread the primed elemental effect to surrounding enemies. So you gotta keep that in mind when you're playing a Storm, because whatever you prime, it will spread. The great one that I've seen a lot of is a lot of ice storms. So what they do is they'll freeze an enemy, they'll detonate that enemy, and then all of the other enemies surrounding that enemy all of a sudden are frozen. Then what you can do is you can detonate again to freeze another patch, as long as your cooldowns are quick enough. So basically you can just toss CC after CC after CC on enemies. It's motherfucking beautiful when you see a Storm, like a really good Storm in action. Now, a couple of the combos that I've been seeing, or the one that I used primarily, was I primed with Frost Shards and then I used Lightning Strike to detonate. Worked the best for me, but I did not have all of the abilities of the Storm. As you guys know, I was more dedicated to Interceptor and Colossus. Those were my jam. So not the best to know about that, but I did hear from a lot of people that they liked using Ice Blast or Ice Storm. I wasn't sure which ability they were referencing, and then Burning Orb to go ahead and detonate that. Again, it seems like Ice tends to be the very popular elemental effect to use for this combo. And just in case you guys were curious, if you are out of your detonator ability, you can go ahead and freeze your enemies and then punch them in the face with a Fiery Fist, because the Storm's melee is also a detonator. So you've got some combo potential there if one of your abilities is down. Moving on, we have the Interceptor, which of course is my bae. It's hard. Listen, the Colossus life feels really nice when everything is exploding around you and you're just running enemies down with your shield, but the Interceptor has some finesse and speed, and their combo trigger is very, very different from all of the other ones. Basically what happens is you gain an aura that spreads the primed elemental effect to surrounding enemies. So basically what'll end up happening is, let's say you freeze an enemy with your Frostglaive. If you melee combo them or use one of your detonators, you get an aura. Now that aura surrounds you for a decent amount of time. I almost want to say like 10-15 seconds. And what happens is you can actually spread that elemental effect to other enemies. So as you're running around meleeing things, if you've got a frost aura on, you can freeze them, which means that it's a little bit safer for you. One of the other ones that I also really like using is acid, because you get the acid aura and then enemies will take even more damage from you and your abilities, which is nice because if you're getting in melee, you're putting yourself a little bit at risk. So to be able to chunk down enemies very quickly with that acid aura, always really, really freaking good. Now, when it comes down to the combos that I really like for this, of course, I like to prime with Cryoglaive. Cryoglaive is just a great ability overall because you can either stop a big heavy in their tracks and they can't do anything while you go ahead and combo them into little bits and pieces. It's also really, really good if you're dealing with the, I guess you would call them the Scorpions, is that the faction name? And they're all rushing at you because they're like melee-like, and then they all freeze and you're like, can't touch me. So that one's really, really good for that, and I like to detonate that with Tempest Strike. I want to say, like, Tempest Strike is fantastic because it deals so much damage, and it's on a really, really cool, a really, really short cooldown, so you can use it fairly frequently, but sometimes I kind of miss. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not always the greatest with that. That's why I can't use Spark Dash, because I fuck that up all the time. The other one I really liked as well is Prime. I like to prime with Venom Spray, and then I like to use regular melee to kind of get that acid aura around me. The one thing that I do kind of want to point out here is in the demo, for some reason, I couldn't find a single copy of Venom Bomb. I don't know if maybe it just did not drop for me, but let me know if you were playing Interceptor a lot and you got your hands on a Venom Bomb, because I sure as hell did not, and I had blues of every single ability out there, so I felt a little bit like personally attacked by all of that. Regardless, that about covers it for all of the damage types and the combos that come with each Javelin. Let me know if you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully this helped you out a little bit, but that about does it for me for now. So as always, love somebody, hurt nobody, and touch your body. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.